The camera flash went off like a gunshot in my face, and I should have known right then that something was wrong. But I was smiling, arm around my wife Reina's waist, thinking we looked good together at the charity gala, thinking we belonged in that frame with her friends Harper, Jess, and Tara, all dressed up in their designer dresses, champagne glasses catching the light. "Wait," Reina said, her voice cutting through the chatter. She turned to me with that smile I'd been seeing more of lately, the one that didn't reach her eyes. "Step out of the frame. You're ruining the picture." The words hit me like ice water. Around us, conversation stopped. Harper's mouth fell open. Jess looked away. Tara studied her manicured nails like they held the secrets of the universe. The photographer, some kid with expensive equipment and nervous energy, stood frozen behind his camera. "What?" I managed to say, though my voice sounded like it came from someone else. "You heard me, Rowan." Reina's smile stayed perfectly in place, but her tone could have cut glass. "Step out. You don't fit the aesthetic we're going for." The aesthetic. Like I was a piece of furniture that clashed with the decor. Like 36 years of life, 13 of them married to her. Could be dismissed because I didn't match whatever vision she had in her head. I looked around the circle. These women I'd hosted at dinner parties, whose husbands I'd watched football with, whose kids I'd helped with science fair projects. Not one of them met my eyes. Not one of them said a word. "Rowan," Reina said again, and now there was impatience creeping in. "We're waiting." The smart thing would have been to laugh it off, make a joke, play along with whatever game this was. But standing there in my best suit, the navy one Reina had picked out for me last Christmas, I felt something shift inside my chest. Something that had been bending for months, maybe years, finally snapped. "You know what?" I said, and my voice came out steady. Calm, even. "You're absolutely right." I stepped out of the frame, and then I kept walking. Behind me, I heard Harper whisper something urgent to Reina. Heard the camera click anyway. Heard my wife's laugh, bright and artificial, carrying over the crowd noise. But I didn't turn around. I walked through the hotel ballroom, past the silent auction tables and the ice sculptures and the other couples posing for their perfect pictures. The valet brought my car around, a practical Honda Civic that Reina always complained about. Not very inspiring, she'd say when her friends pulled up in their BMWs and Mercedes. Tonight, it felt like freedom. I drove home through the empty streets, my hands steady on the wheel, my mind crystal clear for the first time in months. The house looked different when I pulled into the driveway. Bigger, somehow. Like I was seeing it from the outside for the first time. Inside, everything was exactly as we'd left it. Reina's coffee cup from that morning still sat in the sink. Her romance novel lay open on the kitchen counter, bookmark saving her place. The throw pillows on the couch were arranged just how she liked them, perfectly symmetrical, not a single one out of place. I went upstairs to our bedroom and opened her jewelry box. The diamond earrings I'd bought her for our 10th anniversary. The pearl necklace from her mother. The tennis bracelet she'd hinted about for 6 months until I finally took the hint. All of it still there, waiting for her return. Then I opened my laptop and got to work. First, the joint checking account. One click, and I'd transferred my half to my personal account. Another click, and I'd changed the passwords on everything. Bank accounts, credit cards, streaming services, even the grocery delivery app. 13 years of shared access, gone in 10 minutes. Next, I called the moving company. "I need a crew first thing in the morning," I told the dispatcher. "Just clothes and personal items, nothing valuable, nothing shared. I'll have everything sorted and ready to go." "Divorce?" she asked, not unkindly. "Something like that." I spent the next 4 hours going through our house like an accountant, separating what was mine, what was hers, and what we'd bought together. Her clothes went into boxes, her books, her decorative objects, her collection of scented candles that made the house smell like a flower shop. Everything that was purely hers, I packed carefully and labeled. Everything else stayed exactly where it was. By dawn, I had 23 boxes stacked in the garage and a pile of legal documents spread across the kitchen table. Temporary separation papers, filed online and ready for processing. A locksmith scheduled for 8 a.m. A lawyer consultation booked for Monday morning. The movers arrived at 7:30, 3 guys in matching uniforms who didn't ask questions and worked fast. By 9 a.m., Reina's entire life had been reduced to boxes in the back of a truck. "Where to?" the crew chief asked. I gave him the address of her friend Harper's house. "Leave everything on the porch," I said. "Ring the doorbell and go." After they left, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of coffee and my phone, looking at the group text thread that included Reina and her 3 closest friends. I'd been added to it months ago, back when they were planning someone's birthday party and somehow never removed. The messages from last night were already piling up. Harper. "Girl, what was that about?" Jess. Rowan looked upset. Tara. Maybe he had somewhere else to be? Reina. He's been moody lately. Don't worry about it. I typed one message. She can pick up her things at noon. Then I sent it and put my phone on silent. The locksmith arrived exactly on time, a weathered man named Pete who'd been changing locks in this neighborhood for 20 years. Trouble at home? He asked as he worked. You could say that. Happens more than you'd think. You want the deadbolt too? Everything. By 11:30, I had new keys and a house that felt like mine for the first time in years. I made myself a sandwich, turkey and Swiss, no mustard, exactly how I liked it and exactly how Reina never made it, and settled in to wait. She arrived at 12:03, pulling into the driveway in her white BMW like she owned the place, which legally she still half did. But possession, as they say, is 9/10 of the law. I watched from the kitchen window as she tried her key in the front door, watched her face change from confusion to anger to something that might have been panic. She tried the back door next, then the sliding door to the patio. When none of them worked, she started pounding on the front door. Rowan! Her voice carried through the new wood and steel. Rowan, open this door right now. I finished my sandwich and cleared my plate, taking my time. Let her stand out there. Let the neighbors see. Let her feel what it was like to be locked out of something that mattered to her. And my phone buzzed with messages. Harper. She's here and she's crying. Jess. This is crazy. You need to talk to her. Tara. Whatever happened, you can work it out. I blocked all 3 numbers and went back to the window. Reina had given up on the pounding and was now walking around the house, trying every window on the first floor. She looked smaller somehow, less composed than she had in her perfect frame last night. Her hair was coming loose from its careful updo. Her makeup was smudged. Good. My phone rang. Reina's number. I let it go to voicemail, then played the message back. Rowan, this is insane. I don't know what's gotten into you, but we need to talk. I'm your wife. You can't just lock me out of my own house. Call me back. Her own house? Interesting choice of words. I made another call to my lawyer, a woman named Patricia Hendricks who'd handled my business contracts for years. I need to file for legal separation, I told her, and I need to do it today. What's the rush? Let's just say the situation is evolving rapidly, she laughed. I'll draw up the papers. Can you be here by 4? I'll be there. Outside, Reina had given up on the windows and was back at the front door, this time with her phone pressed to her ear. Probably calling Harper or Jess or maybe even her mother. Building her narrative, gathering her allies. Let her. I had something better than allies. I had evidence. Reina moved fast. I had to give her credit for that. By Monday morning, my phone was buzzing with calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Her lawyer, probably. Maybe her father. Richard Caldwell, who'd never liked me much anyway, and would see this as proof that his daughter had married beneath her station. I let them all go to voicemail and drove to my office at Morrison Engineering. I'd been a structural engineer for 15 years, working on everything from shopping centers to school buildings. It was steady work, good money, and it required the kind of methodical thinking that served me well in situations like this. My partner Jake was already at his desk when I arrived, coffee in hand and blueprints spread across his monitor. You look like hell, he said without looking up. Thanks. That's exactly what I was going for. Rough weekend? You could say that. Jake finally looked at me, taking in what must have been obvious signs of stress. Want to talk about it? Not particularly. Fair enough. But if you need anything, time off, someone to talk to, help moving bodies, just let me know. Despite everything, I almost smiled. I'll keep that in mind. I spent the morning reviewing structural calculations for a new office building downtown, letting the familiar rhythm of numbers and load-bearing requirements calm my mind. There's something soothing about engineering problems. They have clear parameters, logical solutions, and predictable outcomes. Unlike marriages. At lunch, I drove to Patricia Hendricks' office. She was waiting for me with a stack of papers and a concerned expression. I've been getting calls, she said without preamble. From who? James Morrison at Morrison, Klein & Associates. He represents your wife. Ex-wife, I corrected. Not yet, she's not. And according to Morrison, you've engaged in harassment, abandonment, and financial manipulation. I sat down across from her desk. Is that what he called it? Among other things. He's filed a police report claiming you've been stalking and threatening Reina. Says you've cut off her access to marital assets and locked her out of the family home without cause. Without cause. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery. Take a look at this. The picture from Saturday night was there, posted on Harper's social media account. Reina and her 3 friends, all smiles and champagne glasses, looking like they were having the time of their lives. The caption read, "Girls' night out. Sometimes you have to cut the excess for the perfect shot." Squad goals. Living our best life. Patricia studied the image. I'm not seeing the problem. Look at the timestamp. Then look at this. I scrolled to another photo, taken just minutes before. This one showed me in the frame, arm around Reina's waist, both of us smiling. But someone, probably Harper, had crossed out my face in red and added the caption, "Before the edit. So much better without the extra." Okay, Patricia said slowly. That's cruel, but it's not exactly grounds for. There's more. I opened my laptop and pulled up a folder I'd been building for weeks. Text messages between Reina and her friends. Take a look at the dates. Patricia scrolled through the screenshots, her expression growing more serious with each one. Harper, are you really going through with this? Reina, he's holding me back. I need to make a clean break. Jess, but 13 years. Reina, 13 years of settling. I deserve better. Tara, what about the house? Reina, I'll get the house and everything else. Trust me, I know how to play this. When were these sent? Patricia asked. 3 weeks ago, but it gets better. I opened another folder. Financial records showing she's been moving money to a private account for 6 months. Credit card statements showing charges I never authorized. And this. The last folder contained screenshots of dating app conversations. Reina's profile, using photos I'd taken of her last summer, chatting with men who clearly didn't know she was married. She's been planning this for months, I said. The photo thing on Saturday wasn't spontaneous, it was the opening move. Patricia leaned back in her chair. How did you get all this? We shared an iCloud account. She never changed the password. I closed the laptop. Everything here was accessible to me as her husband. Nothing illegal about it? No, but it's going to complicate things. Morrison's painting you as the aggressor here. Let him try. I've got documentation going back 6 months showing premeditation on her part. She wanted me out of the picture, literally and figuratively. I just gave her what she asked for. Patricia was quiet for a long moment, reviewing the papers in front of her. What do you want out of this, Rowan? Really? I want her to understand that actions have consequences. I want her to know what it feels like to be cut out of something important. And I want to make sure she doesn't get to rewrite history to make herself the victim. That's going to be expensive. I've got savings, and I've got time. All right. She pulled out a fresh legal pad. Let's talk strategy. We spent the next 2 hours going through my options. Temporary restraining order to keep Reina away from the house, financial disclosure requirements that would expose her secret account, discovery motions that would force her to turn over her phone records and social media accounts. It's going to get messy, Patricia warned me as I prepared to leave. It already is messy. I'm just making sure everyone can see it clearly. I drove home through the afternoon traffic, my mind already working through the next steps. Reina thought she could control the narrative, paint me as the unstable husband who'd snapped without warning. She was about to learn that I'd been paying attention longer than she realized. My phone rang as I pulled into the driveway. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. Rowan? The voice was familiar. Detective Sarah Martinez from the local police department. I'd met her a few years back when someone had broken into our neighbor's house. Detective Martinez, what can I do for you? I need to ask you some questions about a complaint we received. Can you come down to the station? When? Now would be good. I looked at my house, my sanctuary, my fortress. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The police station smelled like coffee and disinfectant, with an undertone of human desperation that seemed to cling to the walls. Detective Martinez led me to a small interview room and closed the door. Your wife says you've been threatening her, she said without preamble. My wife says a lot of things. She filed a report claiming you've been following her, calling her at all hours, and making threats against her safety. I pulled out my phone and opened the call log. Here's every call I've made in the past week. You'll notice there are exactly 0 to Reina's number. Martinez studied the screen. She says you've been using other numbers. Which numbers? She couldn't provide them. Convenient. I opened my text messages. Here are my texts for the past month. Again, nothing to her number. What about in person? She says you've been showing up at her work, her friends' houses. I've been at my office or at home. My business partner can verify that, as can my neighbors. I haven't left the house except for work and one meeting with my lawyer. Martinez made notes on a yellow pad. She also says you've cut off her access to money and locked her out of the house without warning. The money was in joint accounts. I transferred my half to my personal account, which is perfectly legal. As for the house, I changed the locks after she made it clear she didn't want to be there. How did she make that clear? I pulled up the photo from Saturday night. Take a look. Martinez studied the image and the caption. This is what started all this? This is what ended it, but it started months ago. I showed her the text messages, the financial records, the dating profiles. She's been planning to leave for half a year. I just beat her to it. The detective was quiet for several minutes, reviewing everything I'd shown her. Finally, she looked up. Mr. Carrick, I'm going to give you some advice. Whatever game you and your wife are playing, it needs to stop. These kinds of situations can escalate quickly, and nobody wins when that happens. I'm not playing a game, detective. I'm protecting myself. From what? From being erased. She studied my face for a long moment. What does that mean? It means I spent 13 years building a life with someone who decided I was expendable. She wanted to cut me out of the picture, literally and figuratively. But I'm not going quietly. What are you going to do? Nothing illegal, nothing violent, but I'm not going to let her rewrite our history to make herself the victim. Martinez closed her notepad. You're free to go. But Mr. Carrick, be careful. Revenge has a way of consuming people. I stood up and headed for the door. Detective, with all due respect, this isn't about revenge. This is about truth. Outside, the afternoon sun felt warm on my face. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She's still crying. I deleted the message and drove home. Tuesday morning brought rain and a process server. I was drinking coffee and reviewing blueprints when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see a woman in a business suit holding an envelope. Rowan Carrick? That's me. You've been served. The papers were exactly what I expected. A restraining order petition filed by James Morrison on behalf of Reina. According to the document, I was a dangerous and unstable individual who posed a threat to my wife's safety and well-being. The petition requested that I be barred from contacting Reina, approaching her workplace, or coming within 500 feet of her person. It also requested that I be removed from the family home pending a full hearing. I called Patricia immediately. They're moving fast, she said after I read her the key points. Morrison's good at this kind of thing. He's trying to establish the narrative before we can respond. When's the hearing? Friday morning. That gives us 3 days to prepare. What do we need? Everything you showed me yesterday, plus anything else you can find. Phone records, credit card statements, witness statements, if you can get them. We need to prove that Reina's been planning this and that you're not the aggressor here. I spent the next hour organizing files, creating timelines, and printing documentation. The picture that emerged was clear. Reina had been systematically preparing to leave our marriage while simultaneously building a case to portray me as the problem. My phone rang around noon, Jake's name on the caller ID. You need to get down here, he said without preamble. What's wrong? Just get down here, now. I drove to the office through the rain, my mind racing through possibilities. When I arrived, Jake was waiting in the parking lot with a grim expression. She was here, he said. Who was here? Your wife, about an hour ago. She wanted to talk to me about your mental state. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. What did she say? She said you've been acting erratically for weeks. Paranoid, aggressive, talking about people being out to get you. She wanted me to convince you to get help. And what did you tell her? I told her to leave. But Rowan, she was convincing. If I didn't know you as well as I do. She's building a case, making me look unstable. That's what I figured, but there's more. Jake led me toward the building. She didn't come alone. In the lobby, our receptionist Linda was waiting with a concerned expression. Mr. Carrick, there were some people here asking questions about you. What kind of people? A private investigator, I think. He had a badge and everything, asking about your work habits, your behavior, whether you'd been drinking or seemed stressed. The pieces clicked into place. Reina wasn't just filing for separation. She was building a comprehensive case to destroy my credibility, make me look like an unstable, potentially dangerous husband who'd snapped without warning. What did you tell him? The truth, that you're one of the most reliable people I know, that you've never missed a deadline, never lost your temper, never caused any problems here. Good. If anyone else comes asking questions, refer them to our lawyer. I spent the rest of the afternoon at my desk, but my mind wasn't on structural calculations. It was on Reina's strategy and how to counter it. She was smart, I had to give her that. By approaching my coworkers, she was trying to establish a pattern of concerning behavior. By filing the restraining order, she was creating legal documentation of my supposed instability. By positioning herself as the frightened wife of an unpredictable husband, she was generating sympathy and support. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated how much I'd been paying attention. That evening, I sat down with my laptop and began assembling what I privately called the Reina files. Everything I had on her activities over the past 6 months, organized chronologically and cross-referenced with her claims about my behavior. Text message from March 15th, sent to Harper. Rowan's been so distant lately, I think he's planning something. Credit card charge from March 16th, $300 at Victoria's Secret. I'd never seen whatever she bought. Dating app conversation from March 20th. My husband and I are basically roommates at this point, just waiting for the right moment to make it official. Bank statement from March 25th. $2,000 transferred to her private account. When I'd asked about it, she'd said it was for a surprise. The pattern was clear. While she was telling her friends and potential romantic interests that our marriage was over, she was simultaneously creating a paper trail that made me look like the problem. But I had her own words, in her own hand, proving otherwise. My phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number. You need to stop this. She doesn't deserve what you're doing to her. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, Who is this? No response. I added the screenshot to my files and kept working. By midnight, I had assembled a comprehensive timeline that told the real story of our marriage's end. Not the narrative of a wife driven away by an unstable husband, but the calculated exit strategy of a woman who'd decided she wanted something different and was willing to destroy her partner's reputation to get it. The next morning, I drove to Patricia's office with 3 boxes of documentation. This is impressive, she said after reviewing the timeline, and damning, but we need to be careful about how we present it. If we come across as too aggressive, it could backfire. What do you suggest? We let her tell her story first. Let Morrison paint you as the dangerous husband. Then we systematically dismantle every claim with her own words. That's risky. It's also effective. Juries and judges don't like being lied to. When they realize that Reina's been manipulating the truth, they'll question everything else she said. We spent the morning preparing for Friday's hearing, organizing exhibits and planning our defense strategy. Patricia was confident, but I could see the concern in her eyes. What aren't you telling me? I asked. Morrison's good at this. He's going to try to make you lose your temper in court, make you look exactly like the unstable husband he's described. You need to stay calm, no matter what he says. I can do that. Can you? Because if you can't, we'll lose everything. I thought about Saturday night, about the moment Reina had told me to step out of the frame, about the look on her face when she realized I wasn't coming back, about the satisfaction I'd felt watching her try to get into a house that was no longer hers. I can do that, I repeated. Thursday evening, I was home reviewing my testimony when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see a man in an expensive suit, tall, well-groomed, with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to worry about money. I opened the door. Rowan Carrick? Yes. I'm Elliot Brandt. I think we need to talk. I knew the name. Reina had mentioned him before, or her boss at the marketing firm where she worked. Older, divorced, drove a classic Porsche that he was always having restored. The kind of man who wore expensive watches and talked about wine pairings. About what? About my employee and your wife. Ex-wife. Not yet. His smile was cold. May I come in? I stepped aside and let him enter. He looked around the living room with obvious interest, taking in the furniture, the artwork, the family photos that I hadn't yet taken down. Nice place, he said. I can see why she'd want to keep it. What do you want, Mr. Brandt? I want you to drop this nonsense and let Reina come home. This is my home now. She made that choice. She made a mistake. People say things they don't mean when they're emotional. I studied his face, noting the way his jaw tightened when he talked about Reina, the possessive undertone in his voice. How long have you been having an affair with my wife? His composure slipped for just a moment. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. I pulled out my phone and opened the dating app screenshots. Take a look. The profile photos showed Reina in a black dress I'd never seen, standing in front of a fireplace I didn't recognize. The background was elegant, expensive, the kind of place that appeared in architectural magazines. Nice fireplace, I said. Is that your house? Brandt's face had gone pale. You're fishing. Am I? I scrolled to another photo. This one showed Reina wearing a necklace I'd definitely never bought her, a delicate gold chain with a pendant that probably cost more than my car payment. Pretty necklace. Anniversary gift? I think I should go. Good idea, but Mr. Brandt? I waited until he turned back. Tomorrow's hearing should be interesting. I wonder what the judge will think about a married woman using her boss's house for dating profile photos. He left without another word, but I could see his hand shaking as he walked to his car. I added his visit to my timeline and went to bed early. Tomorrow was going to be a long day. Friday morning arrived gray and cold, with the kind of drizzle that makes everything look washed out and depressing. I dressed carefully, my best suit, conservative tie, polished shoes. Patricia had coached me on courtroom appearance. Look respectable, responsible, and slightly wounded. Let the judge see me as the wronged party, not the aggressor. The courthouse was busier than I'd expected, filled with lawyers and clients and the general chaos of people whose lives had gone wrong enough to require judicial intervention. I found Patricia waiting outside courtroom 3 with her briefcase and a stack of files. "Ready?" she asked. "As I'll ever be." "Remember what we talked about. Stay calm, answer only the questions asked, and don't let Morrison bait you." We entered the courtroom to find Reina already seated at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer. She looked perfect, as always. Navy dress, pearls, just enough makeup to look polished but not overdone. The picture of a frightened wife seeking protection from an unstable husband. She didn't look at me when I sat down. Judge Catherine Walsh took the bench at exactly 9 a.m. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 50s, with steel gray hair and the kind of direct gaze that suggested she'd heard every sob story and excuse in the book. "This is a petition for a temporary restraining order," she began. "Mr. Morrison, you may present your case." James Morrison stood up, a man in his 60s with silver hair and an expensive suit that screamed success. He'd built his career on high-profile divorces, and he moved through his opening statement with practiced ease. "Your Honor, my client Reina Carrick comes before this court seeking protection from her husband's increasingly erratic and threatening behavior. Over the past week, Mr. Carrick has engaged in a pattern of harassment, intimidation, and financial manipulation designed to control and punish his wife. He painted a picture of a marriage in crisis, with me as the unstable partner who'd snapped without warning. According to Morrison, I'd abandoned Reina at a social event, locked her out of her home, cut off her access to money, and begun stalking her friends and coworkers. Mrs. Carrick has reason to fear for her safety," Morrison concluded. "She needs this court's protection." Judge Walsh made notes and turned to Patricia. "Ms. Hendricks?" "Your Honor, this petition is based on fabrications and half-truths. My client is not the aggressor here. He's the victim of a calculated campaign to destroy his reputation and steal his assets." Patricia's opening was shorter, but more pointed. She outlined Reina's months-long planning, her secret financial preparations, and her deliberate humiliation of me at the charity gala. "Mrs. Carrick isn't afraid of her husband," Patricia said. "She's angry that he discovered her plans and acted to protect himself." "Very well," Judge Walsh said. "Mr. Morrison, call your first witness." Reina took the stand looking composed and slightly nervous, the perfect combination for a sympathetic witness. Morrison led her through her testimony with skill, establishing the timeline of events from her perspective. According to Reina, our marriage had been struggling for months. I'd become distant, paranoid, and controlling. The incident at the charity gala was just the latest example of my erratic behavior. I'd stormed off without explanation, leaving her embarrassed and confused. "I tried to come home Sunday morning to talk things through," she said, her voice catching slightly. "But he'd changed the locks. All my belongings were gone. I had nowhere to go." "How did that make you feel?" Morrison asked. "Terrified. I realized I didn't know what he was capable of." She described the past week as a nightmare of harassment and intimidation. Anonymous phone calls at all hours. Strange cars parked outside her friend's house where she was staying. A private investigator asking questions about her personal life. "I'm afraid of what he might do next," she concluded. Morrison was good. By the time he finished, Reina looked like a victim, and I looked like a dangerous stalker. But he'd also made several specific claims that I knew we could disprove. Patricia's cross-examination was surgical. "Mrs. Carrick, you testified that your husband became distant and paranoid over the past few months. When did this behavior start?" "Around March, I think." "March." Patricia consulted her notes. "Would you say March 15th? "I don't remember the exact date." "Let me refresh your memory." Patricia approached the witness stand with a printed text message. "This is a message you sent to your friend Harper on March 15th. Would you read it aloud?" Reina's composure flickered. "I don't see how this is relevant." "Your Honor," Patricia said, "this goes directly to the witness's credibility." Judge Walsh nodded. "Please read the message, Mrs. Carrick." Reina's voice was barely audible. Rowan's been so distant lately. I think he's planning something. Planning something, Patricia repeated. What did you think he was planning? I wasn't sure. Were you concerned he might be planning to leave you? Maybe. Patricia returned to her table and picked up another document. Mrs. Carrick, do you recognize this bank statement? Yes. It shows a transfer of $2,000 from your joint account to a private account in your name only. The date is March 16th, one day after you texted your friend about your husband's behavior. Can you explain that timing? Morrison objected, but Judge Walsh overruled him. Reina was looking less composed now, her perfect facade beginning to crack. I was concerned about our financial security. Whose financial security? Yours or both of yours? Both of ours. But you didn't tell your husband about this transfer, did you? I was planning to. When? You made similar transfers in April, May, and June. Were you planning to tell him about those, too? The questioning continued for another hour, with Patricia systematically dismantling Reina's narrative. The dating app profiles, the expensive gifts from unknown sources, the text messages planning her exit strategy. By the time Patricia finished, Reina looked nothing like the frightened wife who'd taken the stand. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who'd been caught in a lie. Morrison tried to rehabilitate his client during redirect, but the damage was done. When Reina stepped down, she wouldn't meet my eyes. Mr. Morrison, Judge Walsh said, do you have other witnesses? Yes, Your Honor. I call Harper Chen. Harper took the stand, looking uncomfortable. She'd been Reina's closest friend for years, and I'd always liked her, or thought I did. But her testimony painted me as an increasingly unstable presence in their social circle. According to Harper, I'd been withdrawn and hostile at recent gatherings. I'd made inappropriate comments about Reina's friends and colleagues. The incident at the charity gala was just the culmination of months of concerning behavior. He seemed angry all the time, Harper said, like he was looking for a fight. But Patricia's cross-examination revealed the holes in Harper's story. Ms. Chen, you posted photos from the charity gala on your social media, didn't you? Yes. Including the photo that excluded Mr. Carrick? Yes. What was the caption on that photo? Harper shifted uncomfortably. I don't remember exactly. Patricia showed her a printout. Does this refresh your memory? Girls' night out. Sometimes you have to cut the excess for the perfect shot. I was just being playful. Playful. And this second photo, posted an hour later, showing Mr. Carrick with a red X drawn over his face, was that playful too? Morrison objected, but Judge Walsh was already studying the printouts with obvious interest. Ms. Chen, the judge said, did you participate in humiliating Mr. Carrick at this event? It wasn't meant to be humiliating. What was it meant to be? Harper had no answer. The rest of Morrison's witnesses, Jess and Tara, fared no better. Patricia had documentation contradicting their claims, evidence of their participation in Reina's campaign against me, proof that their testimony was coordinated and rehearsed. By lunch break, Morrison's case was falling apart. How do you think we're doing? I asked Patricia as we ate sandwiches in the courthouse cafeteria. Better than I hoped. Walsh is smart. She can see what's really going on here. But we still need to present our case. The afternoon session began with my testimony. I'd practiced this moment for days, but sitting in the witness chair with everyone staring at me was still intimidating. Patricia led me through the events of the past week, letting me tell my side of the story in my own words. The months of growing distance in my marriage, the discovery of Reina's secret preparations, the humiliation at the charity gala, and my decision to protect myself. Mr. Carrick, Patricia said, did you at any time threaten your wife? No. Did you follow her or harass her in any way? No. Did you cut off her access to money out of spite? I protected my own assets after discovering she'd been secretly moving our money to accounts I couldn't access. Morrison's cross-examination was aggressive, designed to make me lose my temper and prove Reina's claims about my instability. Mr. Carrick, isn't it true that you abandoned your wife at a public event because you were angry about her success? No, I left because she publicly humiliated me. You felt humiliated by a photograph? I felt humiliated by being told I was ruining the picture and didn't belong in the frame. So you decided to punish her? I decided to protect myself. Morrison kept pushing, trying different angles, but I stayed calm and stuck to the facts. After an hour, he gave up. Patricia called Jake as a character witness, then Linda from our office. Both testified that I'd shown no signs of instability or concerning behavior. Both confirmed that Reina had approached them with questions about my mental state. Our final witness was Detective Martinez. Detective, Patricia said, did you investigate Mrs. Carrick's claims that her husband was stalking and threatening her? Yes. What did you find? No evidence to support the claims. Mr. Carrick's phone records, credit card statements, and work schedule all contradicted the allegations. In your professional opinion, was Mr. Carrick engaged in harassment or stalking? No, if anything, he appeared to be avoiding contact with his wife. By 4 p.m., both sides had rested. Judge Walsh called a brief recess to review the evidence, then returned with her decision. This case presents a troubling pattern of deception and manipulation, she began. Mrs. Carrick has asked this court to protect her from her husband's alleged threatening behavior. However, the evidence shows that Mrs. Carrick herself has engaged in a months-long campaign of financial deception and emotional manipulation. She went through the key evidence, the text messages, the financial transfers, the dating profiles, the coordinated testimony from Reina's friends. I find no credible evidence that Mr. Carrick poses a threat to his wife's safety. The petition for a restraining order is denied. Reina's face went white. Morrison was already whispering urgently in her ear, probably talking about appeals and next steps. But Judge Walsh wasn't finished. Furthermore, I'm troubled by what appears to be perjured testimony in my courtroom. Mrs. Carrick, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for review. As we left the courthouse, Patricia was practically glowing. That was better than I could have hoped for. Walsh doesn't just dismiss cases, she eviscerated their credibility. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt empty. 13 years of marriage, and it had come down to this. Sitting in a courtroom, proving that the woman I'd once loved was a liar. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. I showed it to Patricia. Can we trace this? We can try. But Rowan, you need to be careful. You won today, but desperate people do desperate things. I drove home through the evening traffic, my mind already turning to what came next. The restraining order was gone, but the marriage was still over. The house was still half hers, legally. And somewhere out there, Reina was planning her next move. I'd won the battle, but the war was far from over. The weekend passed quietly, which should have been my first warning. Reina wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully, and her silence felt ominous. Monday morning brought clarity in the form of another process server. This time, the papers were thicker, a full divorce petition with a list of demands that took my breath away. Reina wanted the house, half my retirement savings, alimony for 5 years, and attorney fees. She also wanted me to pay for the emotional distress caused by my abandonment and harassment. I called Patricia immediately. She's going nuclear, Patricia said after reviewing the documents. This is Morrison's specialty. File overwhelming demands and see what sticks. Can she get any of this? Some of it, maybe. The house is marital property, so she has a claim, but the emotional distress claim is garbage, especially after Friday's hearing. What about the alimony? That's the real fight. She's claiming she gave up career opportunities to support your marriage. If she can prove that, she might have a case. I thought about Reina's job at the marketing firm, her steady promotions, her salary that was actually higher than mine. She's been more successful than me throughout our marriage. Then we can fight it. But Rowan, this is going to get expensive. Morrison doesn't file cases like this unless he thinks he can win. Tuesday brought another surprise, a call from my boss, Tom Morrison. Not the lawyer, my boss at Morrison Engineering, a 60-year-old man who'd built the company from nothing and treated his employees like family. Rowan, we need to talk. Can you come to my office? His tone was serious enough to make my stomach clench. I walked down the hall to his corner office, noting the closed door and drawn blinds. Sit down, Tom said. I got a call this morning from a reporter. A reporter? Someone from the local paper, asking questions about you, your work here, your relationship with clients. The pieces clicked into place. What kind of questions? Whether you'd been involved in any professional misconduct, whether there had been complaints about your work, whether the company was standing behind you. And what did you tell them? The truth? That you're one of our best engineers, that we've never had a complaint about your work, and that the company absolutely stands behind you. Tom leaned forward. But Rowan, I need to know what's going on. This kind of media attention isn't good for business. I gave him a condensed version of the past 2 weeks. The charity gala, the separation, the court hearing, and now the divorce proceedings. So your wife is trying to destroy your professional reputation too? It looks that way. Tom was quiet for a long moment. We've weathered worse storms than this. But if this gets ugly, if there are more reporters, more questions, we might need to consider putting you on administrative leave until it blows over. I understand. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I wanted you to know where we stand. I spent the rest of the day trying to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting to Reina's strategy. She wasn't just trying to win the divorce, she was trying to destroy my entire life. My reputation, my career, my financial security. Everything. That evening, I was reviewing structural plans when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see a woman I didn't recognize, mid-30s, professional attire, holding a notebook. I didn't answer. She rang again, then knocked. "Mr. Carrick, I'm Jennifer Walsh from the Herald. I'd like to ask you a few questions." I waited until she left, then called Patricia. "They're going to the media," I told her, trying to turn this into a public relations war. "That's dangerous for them too. If they're talking to reporters, they're opening themselves up to scrutiny." "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe it's time we started telling our side of the story." Wednesday brought a new development, a call from my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who'd lived next door for 30 years. "Rowan, dear, I wanted you to know there's been a man sitting in a car across the street for the past 2 days, taking pictures of your house." I looked out my front window and saw a gray sedan parked at the curb. As I watched, someone in the driver's seat raised a camera with a long lens. I grabbed my phone and walked outside. The car started up and drove away before I could get close enough to see the license plate clearly. This was escalating beyond anything I'd anticipated. Reina wasn't just fighting for money. She was conducting a comprehensive campaign to destroy me. I called Patricia again. "Private investigators, reporters, public relations attacks," I said. "This is getting out of hand." Which means it's working. She wouldn't be going to these lengths if she thought she could win in court. So what do? We fight back, and we fight dirty. Thursday morning, Patricia called with news. "I've been doing some research on your wife's boss, Elliot Brandt. And? Interesting guy. Divorced twice, both times for adultery. His current position at the marketing firm came after some questionable circumstances at his last job." "What kind of circumstances?" "Harassment allegations. Nothing proven, but enough to make him persona non grata in his previous company." I thought about Brandt's visit to my house, his obvious familiarity with Reina, the expensive necklace in her dating profile photos. "You think he's been having an affair with Reina?" "I think it's worth investigating. If we can prove that your wife left you for her boss, a man with a history of inappropriate workplace relationships, it changes the entire narrative." "How do we prove it?" "We hire our own private investigator, a fight fire with fire." That afternoon, I met with a woman named Carol Stevens, a former police detective who'd started her own investigation agency after retirement. She was in her 50s, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Adultery cases are bread and butter for me," she said after I explained the situation. "If there's something to find, I'll find it." "How long will it take?" "Give me a week, maybe 2 if they're being careful." "What do you need from me?" "Everything you have on both of them. Work schedules, favorite restaurants, gym memberships, anything that might tell me where they spend time together." I handed over a file I'd prepared with everything I knew about Reina's routine and what little I'd learned about Brandt. "One more thing," Carol said. "Are you prepared for what I might find? Sometimes the truth is uglier than people expect." "I'm prepared." But I wasn't, really. Nothing could have prepared me for what Carol discovered. Friday evening, she called with her preliminary report. "Your wife and her boss have been having an affair for at least 8 months, she said without preamble. "They're not being particularly careful about it." "What did you find?" "Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, a weekend trip to Napa Valley last month." She told you it was a work conference, right? "Right." "It was just the 2 of them. Same hotel room." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Anything else?" "Oh, there's more. Brandt's been paying for things. Jewelry, clothes, spa treatments. Your wife's been living a double life, funded by her boss." "Can you prove all this?" "Photos, financial records, witness statements from hotel staff. If you want to destroy her credibility in court, I've got everything you need." After Carol hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at the wall. 8 months. While I'd been working late, reviewing blueprints, planning our future, Reina had been planning her exit with another man. The betrayal was complete now. Not just the humiliation at the charity gala, not just the lies in court, but months of deception while she shared my bed and pretended to be my wife. My phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number. "You're making a mistake. Drop the investigation or face the consequences." I screenshot the message and forwarded it to Carol and Patricia. Then I poured myself a drink and began planning my next move. The gloves were coming off. Saturday morning brought rain and a revelation that changed everything. I was reviewing Carol's surveillance photos when my phone rang. Patricia's name on the caller ID, but her voice was tense. Rowan, we have a problem. Morrison filed an emergency motion yesterday afternoon. They're claiming you've been stalking Reina and Brant using private investigators to harass them. That's ridiculous. We're investigating adultery for the divorce case. I know that, and you know that, but they're spinning it differently. They've got photos of Carol following them, records of her inquiries at hotels and restaurants. Morrison's painting it as obsessive behavior. I looked at the photos spread across my kitchen table, Reina and Brant holding hands outside an expensive restaurant, kissing in the parking garage of her office building, entering a hotel together on a Tuesday afternoon when she'd told me she was visiting her mother. When's the hearing? Monday morning. Emergency session. Walsh is not happy about being dragged back into this. What do they want? Restraining order against you and your investigator, plus sanctions for harassment. I hung up and called Carol immediately. They're trying to shut us down, I told her. Expected that, which is why I worked fast. Her voice carried a note of satisfaction. Rowan, what I found goes way beyond adultery. Your wife and her boss have been planning this for almost a year. What do you mean? I mean, they've been systematically transferring money, building a case against you, and documenting everything to make you look unstable. This isn't just an affair, it's a conspiracy. Can you prove that? I've got bank records showing coordinated transfers between Reina's secret account and Brant's personal account. I've got emails between them discussing strategy for the divorce. And I've got something else. What? Security footage from the charity gala. The hotel's surveillance system captured the whole thing, including what happened before and after the photo incident. And? Your wife and Brant were together in a corner, planning the whole scene. It wasn't spontaneous, it was orchestrated. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The photo humiliation hadn't been a moment of cruelty. It had been a calculated move designed to provoke me into exactly the reaction I'd had. They'd wanted me to leave, wanted me to look unstable, wanted to create the foundation for everything that followed. I need that footage, I said. Already copied. But Rowan, there's more. I followed Brant yesterday after he got the court papers about our investigation. Where did he go? To a lawyer. Not Morrison, someone else. Someone who specializes in criminal defense. Criminal defense? They're planning something big. Something that goes beyond divorce court. I spent the weekend preparing for Monday's hearing, but my mind was racing ahead to larger implications. If Reina and Brant were involving criminal lawyers, they weren't just trying to win the divorce. They were trying to destroy me completely. Sunday evening, I got my answer. The doorbell rang at 8 p.m. Through the peephole, I could see Detective Martinez and another officer I didn't recognize. Mr. Carrick, we need to talk. I opened the door, already knowing this wasn't a social call. What can I do for you, Detective? We've received a complaint that you've been engaging in criminal harassment and stalking. I need you to come to the station for questioning. Am I under arrest? Not yet, but I strongly advise you to come voluntarily. I called Patricia from the police station parking lot. Don't say anything without me there, she said. I'm on my way. The interrogation room felt smaller than it had the previous week. Detective Martinez sat across from me with a thick file, while Patricia reviewed the complaint documents. Mr. Carrick, Martinez began, Mrs. Carrick and Mr. Brant have filed sworn statements alleging that you've been stalking them for the past week. They have photos of your investigator following them, records of inquiries at their workplace, and evidence of surveillance. Legal surveillance, Patricia interjected, conducted as part of divorce proceedings. Maybe, but they're also alleging something more serious. Martinez opened the file. They claim you've been making threats, both directly and through intermediaries. She showed me printouts of text messages, the anonymous threats I'd been receiving, but now attributed to me as the sender. These messages were sent to Mrs. Carrick and Mr. Brant from burner phones. The claim is that you've been trying to intimidate them into dropping their divorce demands. I stared at the messages. The same threats that had been sent to me, now being used as evidence against me. Detective, I've been receiving those same messages. They're not from me. Can you prove that? I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots I'd saved. The timestamps, the threatening language, the unknown numbers. Martinez studied the images, comparing them to the printouts in her file. Her expression shifted as she realized what she was seeing. These are the same messages, she said slowly. Exactly the same, I confirmed. Someone's been sending threats to both of us, then using them to frame me. Patricia leaned forward. Detective, I think you need to look more carefully at who's really behind these complaints. The interrogation ended with Martinez promising to investigate further, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. The case against me was falling apart, but the damage was already done. By morning, word would be out that I'd been questioned by police on stalking charges. Monday's emergency hearing was a disaster for Reina and Morrison. Judge Walsh reviewed Carol's evidence with obvious interest: the surveillance footage from the charity gala, the financial records showing coordinated planning, the documentation of the affair. "Mr. Morrison," she said after reviewing the materials, "your clients allege that Mr. Carrick was engaged in obsessive stalking behavior. But this evidence suggests something quite different." She played the hotel security footage on the courtroom monitor. The timestamp showed Saturday night, 2 hours before the photo incident. Reina and Brant were clearly visible in a corner of the ballroom, heads together in intense conversation. At one point, Brant pointed directly at me, and Reina nodded. "This appears to show premeditation," Judge Walsh continued. "Your clients weren't victims of stalking. They were executing a plan." Morrison tried to object, but Walsh cut him off. "Furthermore, Detective Martinez has informed me that the threatening messages your clients attributed to Mr. Carrick were actually sent to Mr. Carrick as well. Someone has been playing both sides against each other." She turned to Reina and Brant, who were sitting in the front row looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Mrs. Carrick, Mr. Brant, I'm going to ask you directly, did either of you send threatening messages to the other party in an attempt to escalate this conflict?" Morrison whispered urgently to his clients, but Judge Walsh wasn't waiting for an answer. "Based on the evidence presented, I'm not only denying the emergency restraining order, I'm also referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of perjury, fraud, and witness intimidation." She banged her gavel. "This court will not be used as a weapon in personal vendettas. Mr. Carrick, you're free to continue your legitimate investigation. Mr. Morrison, I suggest you advise your clients to consider the consequences of their actions." As we left the courthouse, Patricia was practically glowing. "That was beautiful," she said. "Walsh doesn't just dismiss cases, she destroys them." But I wasn't feeling victorious. I was feeling tired. 13 years of marriage had come down to this. Sitting in courtrooms, proving that the woman I'd once loved was not just unfaithful, but actively malicious. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we finish this. The divorce trial is in 2 weeks. After today's hearing, I don't think Morrison will want to go to trial." "You think they'll settle?" "I think they'll have to. Reina's credibility is shot, the adultery is proven, and they're facing potential criminal charges. They're going to want this to go away quietly." That evening, I was home reviewing the financial documents Carol had uncovered when my phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. "Rowan?" The voice was Reina's, but she sounded different, smaller, defeated. "What do you want?" "I want to talk. Can I come over?" "I don't think that's a good idea." "Please, just for a few minutes. I need to explain." Against my better judgment, I agreed. She arrived 20 minutes later, looking nothing like the polished woman who'd told me to step out of the frame 3 weeks ago. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, her expensive clothes wrinkled. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside and let her enter. She looked around the living room, our living room, though it felt like mine now, with obvious pain. "I've made a mess of everything," she said. "Yes, you have." "It wasn't supposed to go this far. The photo thing, the court cases, all of it. It was just supposed to be a clean break." "A clean break?" I couldn't keep the anger out of my voice. "You plan to humiliate me in public, steal our money, and destroy my reputation. That's your idea of clean?" "Elliot said it would be easier this way, make you look unstable, get a favorable settlement, move on with our lives." "Elliot said?" I studied her face. "How long have you been taking orders from him?" "It's not like that, isn't it? 8 months of sneaking around, lying to my face, planning my destruction, all for a man who's done this before with other women?" Her composure cracked. "I loved you once, Rowan. I really did. But not enough to be honest with me. Not enough to end things like an adult instead of a sociopath. I'm sorry." "No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your plan didn't work. But you're not sorry for what you did to me." She was crying now, but I felt nothing. The woman I'd married was gone. Maybe she'd never existed. This person sitting in my living room was a stranger who happened to share some memories with me. "What do you want, Reina?" "I want to settle. End this before it gets worse." "What are you offering?" "I'll take half the house value and walk away. No alimony, no other demands." I thought about it for a moment. Half the house was probably fair, legally speaking, and ending this nightmare had obvious appeal. "What about Brant?" "That's over. It was over the moment you hired that investigator. Because you got caught. Because I realized what I'd become." I looked at her sitting on the couch where we'd watched movies together, planned vacations, talked about having children someday. 13 years of shared life, reduced to a real estate transaction. "I'll consider it," I said finally. "Thank you." She left without another word, and I never saw her again. The settlement papers arrived 2 days later. Exactly what she'd offered. Half the house value, no alimony, no other claims. I signed them and had Patricia file them with the court. 2 weeks after that, I got a call from Detective Martinez. "Thought you'd want to know," she said. "We traced those threatening messages. They came from Brant's phone." "What happens to him?" "He's been arrested for witness intimidation and conspiracy. His lawyer's already talking plea deal." "And Reina?" "She's cooperating with the investigation. I probably won't face charges if she testifies against Brant." After Martinez hung up, I sat in my kitchen now, and thought about justice. Reina would walk away with a clean record and $500,000. Brant would probably get probation and a fine. Their plan had failed, but the consequences were minimal. But I was still here. Still in my house, still at my job, still standing after everything they'd thrown at me. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw the news about your divorce. Hope you're doing okay." This time, I recognized the number. It was from Mason, my old college roommate who'd moved to Seattle years ago. Somehow, word of my situation had reached him. I typed back, "Doing better than okay. Doing great." And for the first time in months, that was actually true. The final divorce decree arrived on a Tuesday morning in October, exactly 2 months after the charity gala that had started everything. I signed the papers, made copies for my files, and put the originals in my safe. That evening, I drove to the same hotel where the charity gala had been held. They were hosting another event, a fundraiser for the local children's hospital. I bought a ticket at the door and walked into the same ballroom where Reina had told me to step out of the frame. The photographer was different this time, but the scene was familiar. Groups of well-dressed people posing for pictures, champagne glasses catching the light, everyone trying to look their best. I found myself standing in almost the exact spot where I'd been that night in August. But this time, I was alone. And this time, that felt exactly right. Someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned to see a woman about my age, dark hair, kind eyes, wearing a simple black dress that looked elegant without trying too hard. "You look like you're remembering something," she said. "Something like that." "Good memory or bad memory?" I thought about it for a moment. "Both, I think," she smiled. "Those are the most interesting kind." "I'm Rowan," I said, extending my hand. "Lisa, and you look like you could use some company." "You know what? I think you're right." We talked for an hour about everything except my divorce, her job, the reason we were both at a charity fundraiser on a Tuesday night. When the photographer approached our group, I didn't hesitate. "Mind if we get a picture?" he asked. "Not at all," I said, putting my arm around Lisa's waist. The camera flashed, and for the first time in months, I was genuinely smiling. Later, when the photos were posted online, I saw myself in the frame, not stepping out, not being excluded, but standing exactly where I belonged. The picture was perfect.